This is Miss Andrea, and this is not another homeschool vlog. I am a homeschool program administrator, instructor, and education advocate. Locally, I teach homeschool classes. I do guidance counseling for high school kids, whether homeschooled or traditionally schooled, and I run this vlog. So today, we're going to talk about dealing with hesitant writers. The main problem I have noticed when dealing with hesitant writers, students who just don't want to write, is not knowing where to start. You can give them prompts, you can, read them a story and ask them to write on that. None of these things help. They just can't put down that first word. They can't put down that first sentence, and they get incredibly frustrated. Some kids may not do this outwardly. I've had students who, whenever I asked them to write, they would do this. And then I've had students, when I asked them to write, they would just avert their eyes and just kind of freeze. What is interesting is these same children have no problem in expressing themselves verbally. So what we need are some tools to move them forward to deal with that hesitancy, to eradicate it. So a tool I like to use when dealing with hesitant writers is transcribing. Literally, when you see that they're having a little meltdown about writing, you just pick up a pencil, a paper, and say, "You talk." I'll write. It'll take them back a little bit. They'll feel like they're getting away with something, and then they'll start talking. Even when they don't start talking, you just start asking questions. Oh, who are we talking about? What did they do? When did they do it? How, when, background. And the more questions you ask them, literally the faster they start talking. And before you know it, they've written an essay. Well, you've written it, but they've given you all the information. And so that just works magically with some children. Some children like a voice to text as an option, where you can turn on the computer app and just talk to the computer. Voice to text might feel like cheating, but they're still getting in their writing practice by editing their work. And so, speaking of hesitant writers, I want to introduce you to another tool. This month, I got to try out a program called Zookeeper. It is an award-winning creative writing program that helps improve the writing skills of kids aged 6 to 12 and older. In fact, I used it with a 15-year-old who is on an IEP and is an extremely hesitant writer. By signing up, children will get improved core reading and writing skills, personalized feedback from a dedicated team of tutors, weekly lessons that incorporate interactive video elements and games to teach your children key skills, and publishing opportunities and weekly competitions with real-life prizes. There are also free monthly educational printables. There will be a discount in the link below with more information for you there. As you can see, this program starts off by having you create a fun creature and then name the creature, and then you get to talk about the creature and talk about its exploits. The student that I worked the most with on this, who hates to write, she freezes when I ask her to write, kept saying, "Okay, let's just do one more section. Let's just write one more section." So I really, really endorse this program. So check it out. This program warms them up with the drawing portion where the characters, for me, came out a little funny looking. And I think that's kind of the point. When I worked with it with students, it got us laughing and it lightened the mood to begin with. So we start off doing something fun, which lightens the mood. By lightening the mood, we're asked a bunch of questions that help children understand that writing is really just telling you who, what, when, where, and how. By answering those questions, we end up with an actual paper that they can present back. Because I teach history with language arts integration, I'm actually going to challenge my student to create a historical fiction piece, giving her creature the characteristics of a historic figure. And I'm pretty excited to see what will happen. So, today's question. Today's question is as follows. My homeschool child will not write. He is a perfectionist and would rather not write at all because he doesn't want me to correct it and ask for edits. How do I deal with this? So 2 years ago, I had a student whose parent told me he was having meltdowns over his writing assignments. I had him voice record them and then write what he had recorded. And that also made him mad because he was rather long-winded, and verbally he had pretty much written a book. So he didn't want to transcribe all of that. After about an hour in, he demanded to just be able to hand in the recording. I got him to finish the assignment by having him listen to it and just write down the important parts. And that's how I got a written assignment out of him. The next time he had an assignment, he got upset again. He did not like the previous process, and so he did not want to write at all. This was during COVID, so his mother asked me to take a Zoom call with him. Since it was clear to me that he was a perfectionist, I just, after a little back and forth, said to him, fail. Write the worst paper you can write me. I challenge you to write a horrible paper. Do a bad job, please. And I told him to write it on his favorite subject, which was Norse mythology. It was amazing. So then we had another Zoom session where we shared a Google Doc, and I had him read the Google Doc out loud while I typed in edits. And he was looking on while I typed in these edits. And by page 3, because this was a 10-page paper, he was telling me where to put the punctuation marks. And that's important too, because these kids, they don't want to write because they don't want to be corrected. They don't want to have to edit. But by having them read it aloud and to follow the punctuation marks when reading aloud, they catch on really quick that they have to breathe in certain places. And so they learn to put those periods and punctuation marks in there and what have you. By the way, he is my best writer now, 2 years later. So while we're here, I want to tell you a little bit more about teaching these hesitant writers to edit. I had a student who, during the first year that we had Zoom that first spring, we had transitioned their class from in-person to Zoom, and their in-person final project became a video. And so the student, after struggling to write the script, which he hated doing, presented it to me, and it wasn't edited at all. But he needed to film it. He didn't know how to go about filming it. So I arranged a Zoom call, and he sat his camera in front of the screen on record, and then I coached him through recording the entire, 5 pages. I think we were at it for about an hour. So what happened is, I said, just look at me and have your script up on your screen and read it to me. We'll press record and we'll get, good footage. And so he started reading it to me, and he would trip up on his words. And I'd say, okay, that point right there, you were supposed to breathe. So if you're supposed to stop and breathe, at the end of that sentence, what goes there? You know, we got a period there. And then he'd start reading again, and he'd be reading and reading, and it'd get to be wordy, and his mouth would get to be full, and he'd stumble on his words again, and I'd say, that sentence is also too long, so let's examine it and shorten it. And we'd put in a couple commas, put in a period, put in a dash, whatever was needed, and that would be fine. And so we do that for a paragraph. And then with that new punctuation, we'd start that paragraph over and he would read it. And so we did the first paragraph over and he looked at me and he was like, oh. Because here's the thing. These kids don't get the point of punctuation. But when they have to read it out loud and they're being filmed and they're watching themselves do it on camera, they understand why punctuation is so important. So we did that for the first paragraph. We finished that whole page and he was like, I really get this. Let's rock and roll. And so that first page took about a half hour and the next 4 pages took another half hour because he was like, wait. And he previewed the page and he mumbled it to himself under his breath. He put in the punctuation. We had a shared Google Doc. I could see him putting the punctuation and then he'd do it. I taught a child to punctuate an essay, a 5-page essay in 1 hour because he had to film a script he had written. And that script, was the essay. So if you ever really have kids pushing back at you on just doing punctuation at all, what's the point? Stupid, I don't like it. Make them read it to you. Film them so they can see themselves reading it to you, because you can film them and have them read it and then say, okay, now let's punctuate it, and then film them again and ask them which one is better. There's so many ways you can go at it, but whatever speaks to the child. Sometimes getting kids to do something is getting them to see the value of it. And in that instance, this child really got to see the value of punctuation and then started punctuating confidently and correctly. So I hope that tip was also helpful. So I hope you enjoyed this topic on dealing with a hesitant writer. If you have any questions or comments, please look down below and also check out the links for the Night Zookeeper and let me know what you think.